Hello, Meatsmiths, and welcome to a Meatsmith Harvest, the podcast wherein we endeavor to take up again the traditions of our ancestors, because they seem to have a pretty good means of living the good life, even if it wasn't as convenient as our life is today. So today is, we're towards the end of February here, and in the northeast of Oklahoma, this means that we have a false spring. This is this thing that this region does. The averages of this region are actually very mild averages, but taken individually, the weather events are extreme, as are the vagaries of the temperature. And one of our most difficult things to deal with is the fake spring. For example, today it's going to get over 70 degrees. And just a couple weeks ago, it was minus 16. And we might do that again. We might get really cold again. And so just now, the warmth has come on and tempted everybody's fruit trees to start putting out their blossoms. And even some grass is growing right now with just a few days of high temperatures that we've had. But it's all going to be slammed down by the frozen wind from literally the North Pole that blows through here. And that is not an exaggeration. We have the south wind and the north wind duking it out over our heads in northeastern Oklahoma. The south wind from the Gulf, and then, which is always warm, and then literally the polar wind that just screams down the Okanagan and slides down the Rocky Mountains and then dukes it out right over our heads, fighting and jousting, as it were, with tornadoes. And that's why we get those. And that's what this place is like. It's pretty interesting. It's generally, I would say Northeast Oklahoma is hostile to human life. Momentarily, though, it's actually quite nice, and it's very fertile. And you can grow everything here as long as you can get it to just hold on, especially if it's a perennial crop, and not bloom or blossom or set buds until after the false spring that we tend to get this time of year. We are also anticipating the birth of our 10th child, a sheard that will enter our airspace coming up in probably the end of March. And I say probably not because I don't know the due date. I do. But due dates around here are more like guidelines than hard and fast laws. Lauren tends to go late, and which really just means that's her actual due date. Different from the one that we proleptically imagine to be the time when a child ought to be born. And we have an announcement to make, coinciding perfectly and conveniently with the birth of our 10th child. We are going to endeavor to sell our home. So Farmstead Meatsmith is going to embark on a new agricultural chapter. There's one step that we were not able to complete, and it's really the first step in building a homestead, acquiring land, starting to sustain yourself by the produce of the earth. Step one is you got to clear the bramble. You got to clear the field. You got to get rid of the weeds to make it arable and useful land. And I would say one of the most pernicious weeds that will choke out your good husbandry and your good agriculture is going to be the mortgage. The mortgage weed. It's an invasive species and replicates itself unnaturally, sort of like a cancer. I'm going to try not to be too hyperbolic and negative about it, but I was going to tell you today our deliberation and this story that kind of led us to this point. But I would like to say in advance that it's a good thing, and we're actually not that down about it. Most of all because, Lord willing, we look forward to delivering ourselves from the particular economy of legal tender and the weeds, insofar as we can. So that's kind of what is on the docket today, but we will definitely get into more things. And I'm pleased to have the ever able and excellent help of our community manager with us on the Meatsmith podcast today. Hello, Victoria.
Hi.
She can help with all the things. Like if I start to ramble inanely and spiral into philosophical abstractions that make no sense to anyone, she can snap me out of it. And also, Victoria can moderate the comments and the submissions of Meatsmith members, because one of the things we are starting along with this new and more frequent podcast schedule is enabling Meatsmith members from our website, from from farmsteadmeatsmith.com, the exclusive ability to join in and participate in live recordings. This is actually something we do with the Meatsmith members on a regular basis. We do this monthly and sometimes more, where we get on and we discuss all of our endeavors of agriculture on the domestic scale in the modern context, which is a lot of qualifications, but you know what? That's a weird thing to do. Totally unique in the history of the cosmos is the challenge of farming, growing food for the family scale in a context of pathological convenience. And the Meatsmith membership is a place where I have created films about what I've learned in that process and archive them there just for members. And then we get together once a month and we talk about it. And people can then relay their wisdom, what they have learned in doing this crazy thing, producing food on a family scale in a modern context, given their specific region. And we can thereby resuscitate some of the traditional knowledge that has been lost. And I have to say, we're pretty good at it. It's pretty awesome. We have developed, amassed, and archived a substantial quantity of traditional curing methods, old school husbandry, unique to the difficult climates and regions of our continent, through our Meatsmith members and their membership. So they can participate in this through a private live link on YouTube. And so any Meatsmith member, feel free. Oh, we got one who joined just now. Good to see you. Thank you. Welcome. Feel free to comment or add any questions throughout the duration of the podcast, and you will inevitably derail me in a good way, and we can talk about things that are much more interesting than what just springs to my brain. So that's what we're going to do going forward as we continue to design and put more of these out. I've already got several Meatsmith Harvest podcasts recorded. I think I have 4 that will be released. Ideally, we're trying to get them out every Friday. And I'm producing one a week. So we'll have a lot more. We'll have a lot more to work with. And I really look forward to it because it gives me a chance to dive into the things that I like to read and excavate the sedimentary layers of forgotten traditions on the most mundane things. They're so mundane. Just the elemental acts of supplying our basic bodily needs, which is really the instruments of living the good life, I think. St. Thomas, unlike the Stoics, actually said that your bodily goods, like bacon, butter, beer, clothing, shelter, those things are necessary to the good life. Whereas a Stoic might say, no, all you need is virtue. And if you can cling tenaciously to your inner virtue, it does not matter what physical deprivations you suffer. You'll because you have virtue, you will be happy. And St. Thomas says, no, actually, that's wrong. It's wrong on account of the fact that you don't just have a body, you are a body. By nature, you are a dependent physical being. And so how can we bracket off your nature by saying you don't need bodily goods? That would be unnatural. And so we actually do need these things. Now, they are secondary goods. They are not primary goods. And St. Thomas is all about ordering your goods. Such a helpful thing to order your goods, primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever fourth area is, to order them and make them subservient to the final end, the final good. Brings lots of clarity to your endeavors a little further down the chain, a little further down the line. And he would say that a sufficiency of bodily goods is necessary for the development of virtue, to live virtuously. They are the instruments of virtue, right? They're like the instruments whereon we can exercise temperance, all the virtues which constitute the good life, on which we can exercise prudence, and that other virtue, economy, by which we proportionately distribute the goods of the household. And so it is a worthy topic of the most advanced philosophers, which don't exist anymore, to consider agriculture, to consider the production of the basic bodily goods. That is worthy of thought. It's not useless, whatever the Stoics may say. And then, in line with that, I was going to announce, I kind of already announced it, but for those of you who are joining us more now, the Sheards we're moving. We're putting up our, let's put that in quotes, our homestead for sale. We're going to move, but we're going to stay local. And I'll tell you a little bit of the story of how this came to be. It's sort of sad, but not that sad. You see, we moved from Washington State 5 years ago, where we had 2.5 acres on a little island in the Puget Sound. And the bare facts of the case is that we were outgrowing that place. We had, at that time, 7 children, with number 8 on the way. We always choose to move and start anew on the eve of the birth of a child. But, I would say that it would, at 10 children in now, it would be an exception to the rule if we ever did anything when we weren't expecting a child. So there's that. So this is really just par for the course in many ways. But we moved from Washington. We were literally outgrowing our house. And that is really where we learned that your children do grow. And their proportions get large. And they frequently, especially in their length, become much taller and bigger than you do. And so we were literally running out of space. We had a tiny little house, very awkward layout. I think it was almost 1,600 square feet. And it was much of that square footage, though, was lost because of the awkwardness of the layout. Um, it was certainly emphatically not designed for a family of, at that time, 9 at all. We were on top of each other. And it became apparent to us that that was actually beginning to hinder the elemental duty we had to educate our children. Because so we homeschool. We actually do both now, but we were homeschooling then, and it just became abundantly clear that they needed some distance. They needed some space. People put studies and libraries in a home for a reason. And we also don't make the kindergarten the same room as the college lecture hall. And there's a good reason for that, right? It's not for nothing. And so those very elemental basic things, in spite of our erstwhile confidence that no, we're just going to do this magic thing called homeschool. And just because it's not conventional school, public school, it's going to magically work. Now, the thing about that is that it's wrong. Homeschooling is not a sacrament. It is the natural duty of the parents to educate their children. But it is not a magic pill. And so we were seeing that, wow, we actually do need to arrange our lives and order our family in such a way that the young man that's going to be 16 soon can actually sit apart and read and think and have some quiet. And I dare say it is a lot to expect, especially of tall male children, to live literally on top of each other and maintain virtue. That requires an extraordinary degree of the ordering principle of the household. That is quite uncommon. So that was there were actually a lot of other reasons that we decided to move, but that was definitely a big one. We were outgrowing it, and we were in a position where we could not afford, for so many reasons, to just add on to the house. It's a difficult thing to do in Washington State, in the county that we were in, and there were other things, including the utter collapse of the culture during COVID. And so for those reasons, and also to get to a place where we did not have to travel 2 hours to get to church, to get to the holy sacrifice of the Mass, we moved. And that brought us to Oklahoma. Now, we were able to sell our place in Washington State and move here. We left 2.5 acres, and we were able to buy 10 here in northeastern Oklahoma, with a barn and a shop that I'm in right now, and a house that is can just about fit us. It's bigger, and it's much more ordered to not be so on top of each other. And I think, I feel like that it gives the children an opportunity to learn to care for the place that they live. And I know that sounds so elemental. I feel like there's these, we could call them primitive virtues for children and for humans, in the sense that they're so preschool that, as a 38, 42, 57-year-old adult, you forget that they need to be taught. And then you have children, and you realize they are not born with the knowledge that the contents of the nose should stay in tissues if it must leave the nasal cavity at all. Like that 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 is a brand new piece of news to every human being born. And there's these very little virtues of self-cleanliness and of maintaining your space, cleaning your room, doing your laundry. These are so elemental, but totally essential because we are not born with them. They must be taught. And that is what we are trying to do, and you're unable to do when you give them just a little more space. There's a little more space for them to have a care for, to take care of. Whereas when you're on top of each other, you're just kind of in survival mode all the time. And it's a little crazy. So that was definitely part of our learning curve in raising a family and in getting out to a place where we could fit, for example, in the house in an ordered way. All right, I'm going to bring our competent community manager back into the discussion here. This is the problem with rural internet, rustic internet, shall we say? It excludes people unnecessarily sometimes. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, what is going on? There we go. Got it. All right, sent that over. Yeah, so we came out here to Oklahoma, and we really had a few simple requirements for where we would land. Number one was a sub 15-minute commute to Mass. And this is because, as Catholics, we have the inestimable privilege of being able to go to Mass every day. It is the duty of the priest, not to us, but to his Lord, to offer the Mass every day. And it's a beautiful thing. And he will make that opportunity public. And so we can go and assist at Mass. We can go to our altar rail. You know, that rail that separates the pews from the altar is not a barrier. We call it an altar rail, not because it separates us from the altar, but because it is an altar. It is the altar of the laity where we can kneel in front of it and offer our sacrifices in union with the priest. It's a beautiful thing. And so it was becoming, especially as we were raising a growing family, very evident to us in Washington State that it was important for us to go to Mass as frequently as we could, to receive as much grace as we needed, because our nature was in desperate need of grace, of sanctifying grace. And so we could go to Mass every day. That was number one. And so we found this place that was 15 minutes from a really good parish, just 13 minutes up the road. And then we needed some land so that we could produce our food. And we were able to do that as well. We got 10 acres here. And then I did need a shop so that I could sort of seamlessly as possible, slide right in and start doing Meatsmith work, because one must a living make. And that shop is an essential instrument, a tool to that end. So we could slide in, and I could basically just inhabit the shop. I was able to just move in, cutting table. The biggest infrastructure improvement that we had to make was the creation of our walk-in, and really frame out a good insulated walk-in and a meat trolley system. And we were able to do that. Um, and then the other goal that we had was to get out of the mortgage. But alas, that one we were unable to accomplish. When we moved here, if we wanted the other three, proximity to mass, land, habitable shop, and a house that would work, that was bigger than 1,600 square feet for all of us, we would have to sacrifice one or more of those three in order to eliminate the mortgage and just buy a property outright. And so that was one thing that we were not able to do. And that's okay if your income can sort of rework debt as leverage. But as a friend was explaining to me, he helped me understand these complicated monetary concepts. Understanding is that's a strong word for what happens in my head when I think about it. But in our case, I'm a service provider, and it's a very simple service. And I'd like to continue to simplify it to just the educational element and then just growing food for us. And in that context, it's the mortgage made less and less sense. And, we were surprised too when we moved out here. We thought that we were actually going to, if we couldn't eliminate the mortgage altogether, we were going to have a smaller one. It was going to be a little more manageable. And that is technically true, even though we have so much more resource here. In terms of the land, the shop, the fencing, the barn. It's really beautiful. We didn't have any of those things on Vashon in Washington State. But alas, there are these sneaky things called property taxes. And those, and homeowners insurance in the state of Oklahoma. And those things were surprising. They caught us off guard a little bit as to their cost. Let's see. I'm just trying to manage this situation, make sure I get it right. All right. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
All right. I think you're
Can
back.
you hear me? Okay. Sorry. Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay. I was
can
trying to
hear
cut
you.
in earlier to say that
You're there.
you were homesteading, homeschooling your kids. You had no living room, practically. You had a table, you ate at the
Yes,
table,
that's right.
we
Yeah.
homeschooled at the table. There was this one tiny couch that when you would read to the kids, kids would have to sit behind you to see the pictures, so it was the smallest living room I've ever seen for a family of your size.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I would even say, yeah, that was one of the primary absurdities of that little house, was that the living room was literally like 7 by 8, maybe. It was crazy. It was a little tiny hovel bordered by some stairs. And then it was even the raised floor under the dining room table. I don't
it had
know
a
if
fireplace under it.
you knew this, Victoria, but we replaced.
Yeah, a hole for a fire pit.
That's right. We replaced the floor there.
Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a gas line running in there. And it was like they had a fire pit in the middle of the house, in the middle of a living room, which caused the entire surface area of the floor of the main living area to be raised. And it cut the whole thing in half by 2 steps, kind of reducing the living room area to a hallway, basically. It was very weird, very odd home. And it was definitely, Lauren and I had to learn by trial and error, and mostly error, that you need space. You need space for a family. And now we're learning that again. And as we look at the prospect of either building a new place or acquiring one that's already built, one of the things that's high on our list is the ability to have a study, a place where people can read and not have to compete with the 2-year-old and
Yeah.
the baby. And because we just have to face it. I have discovered this, through the crucible, but it's a benevolent crucible. I love my children and they're wonderful. But that you have to separate in an honest examination of yourself, um, your ability to pray
Mm.
and parent at the same time. Now, or to think, to study, to read, or to pray and parent. And I would say that, yes, there are saints that can do that because they're in a state of constant prayer, and that is wonderful. And that is something that we can justly and we ought to rightly aspire to. Um, but in the meantime, I have come to recognize that it's it is too much of a battle. And I'll give you an example. So we don't militantly or determinedly bring all of our little children into mass
Oh, you're not doing that.
every
Okay.
every mass that we attend. Yeah, we'll do it sometimes. We'll do it, maybe once a week or maybe even less. We'll bring the two, well, it's the 3-year-old and the 18-month-old. And the reason is actually historically the little kids didn't go to mass, and that's okay. They are baptized. So it's not like they're missing out too much on grace. They haven't committed any sin, and they've been cleansed completely of all original and personal sin through the sacrament of baptism. So they're holy and they're innocent. And now they definitely benefit from going to mass, I think, just being close to the altar, but in moderation. And if mass, as it so frequently does, degenerates into this horrible, convoluted struggle with your 3-year-old or your 15-month-old, where you they're so incompatible with the silence and the prayer, and yet they you can't really punish them, especially when they're really young, because what is the 18-month-old doing? He's just being an 18-month-old. He's just wanting to blabble, talk and yell because it's echoey in the church, and run around on the pews because that would be really fun. And nonetheless, you do need them to be quiet if they're going to be in the church. And you can sort of like play this tormented game where it's like, I am not getting mad while I am sort of corralling my child. Therefore, it's kind of like a prayer, but now I am actually getting mad and I'm powerless to discipline them, so I
That's a
can't
lot.
stop them, so I have to leave. And you take them out.
There
Yeah,
is a
it's
point, though, I
crazy.
remember being in church as a kid
And so
where when they're a little older, you get to learn to be patient and to wait. That I don't maybe
yeah.
see kids get to do now, but I spent a lot of time
Yes.
staring at the ceiling in the church being like, "Okay, I'm here for an hour. Let's see where my thoughts take me," you know?
Yes, and I think that they do because they children do need to learn that. They do need to learn if they're so that they can be happy, to be able to rein in their desire to just run around everywhere and hold still and pray and think. And I think that a great place, an ideal place to teach them that is the family rosary at night because it takes 15, 20, 30 minutes to pray the rosary. And that's really where we help Dominica, for example, just very incrementally. Like, sweetie, you got to learn to stay in one place, not running laps in every single room in the house. Like, we're just going to stay right here. And then as they get older, you can help them to enter into gradually increasing um, degrees of attention until they are praying, but they really have to rein in the body first and its tendency to frantically bounce about. And so
So that means
that was
that
part of our realization that we
not all of
we
you are
needed
going
space.
every day then. Someone's staying home with the littles. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. So, yeah, and we have 3 drivers now because Wallace can drive, and so we can pretty reliably get, um, a lot of us to mass throughout the week, and still keep the little ones at home because the other thing that tends to happen, unless you're very man, again, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary if you can do this, is, in addition to not really having just cause to punish an 18-month-old for, like, going, "Bah!" Right in the middle of mass. Um, if they do misbehave in mass, uh, do you have the virtue to actually discipline them, to take them out? Or are you gonna kinda grasp at the ability that, "Oh, we can kinda stay in here and grit our teeth and make it work a little bit?" And so, at least for me, more often than not, I've found that in a I was also neglecting to discipline them, uh, because we're trying to force them into that square hole, and, we would miss those opportunities because you really need to be prompt and clear and charitable with the discipline of little kids. And it's very hard to do that if you're like, oh, but I'm at mass. Oh, but I have to discipline this child, but I'm at mass, and you're torn. So we have decided not to pick that battle anymore, and it is so much better. And I yeah, it's worked out a lot, and I feel like the other battle we have not picked, which is related, is the sort of delightful idea that we can be a tiny house family, right? There is sort of this aura about, hey, we don't need much. We
Right.
can we can be in a small space. We don't need the opulence of a lot of square footage. It'll force the kids to learn to be, orderly with each other. And it's like, no, you can't. There's only so far that goes, and you might also
Mhm.
not be able to pick that battle because we're limited. And you get tired and old and sick sometimes, and you have 10 children, and that battle
So
probably needs not to be
now you're
picked.
seeing
Um, and
with the
so that
babies
was
and the
big too.
teenagers homeschooling everybody that you need more space to separate out the different ages, right? I think I've heard you and Lauren talk about
Yes.
that before. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things we've done as a, semi-agricultural homeschooling family is I've brought the
Mhm.
boys into my shop, um, because it's quiet out here. And we set up their desks here, and they definitely need that separation, because it is very likely if we don't give them that they will never have the experience of
Mhm.
developing studiousness. And it's really a more important than, I would say, as long as it's not straight up false and vicious content, more important than the content is just the habit of self-discipline that you get from studying. And that does require quiet. It requires some solitude so you can focus your energy, so you can learn to sacrifice everything else and just focus on one thing, your particular field of study. You're teaching them sacrifice. And it's very easy in a noisy home with little kids bouncing everywhere. Their heads are going to be bouncing everywhere with distraction, and they won't learn what it feels like. They won't learn that habit of saying no to everything else and just focusing their powers on what they need to do. And as a duty. They have to educate themselves as a duty, and we have to provide the context for them to do that in as their parents. All of which means you need some space. You need space for them to do that. And so that's really what one of the things where we're able to get here when we move to Oklahoma is we do have a little more space. Honestly, we could use a little more. I am shamelessly in favor of enormous houses. I am no longer at all uh, ashamed by the notion that we would live in a
Do you,
mansion. It's like, no, bring it on. We will
do you
fill
think that
it
that's
so fast. It's
a
not even
regional
funny.
thing
And
where
it
we were
won't,
in the Pacific Northwest that people wanted small houses, or do you think it's the United States as a whole? Because I
yeah,
find that all the time. Yeah, that people I think, oh, there's so much space, so it's such a luxury.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's for different reasons. It's weird. I think that um I mean here it's just the fewness, and across the country it's just the fewness of children. You can really only indulge in the luxury of a 3 bedroom, 2 bath until you get to, 5, 6, 7 kids, and then it's like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And it becomes undeniable. But that's what all of our houses are, you know? It's a 3-2. I think in Washington, at least in Western Washington, you have the added impetus for a tiny home because you get to claim
Right.
your ecology points. You're more green because your house is small, and that confers virtue upon you. Whereas I think the actual the worst thing that you could possibly do for the environment is to deprive it of virtuous humans by not
Mm.
not having a big family. And that's one of the things I was thinking about with in terms of who gets to use land, and our different notions of ownership and how they change from the medieval era to now. In the medieval era, ownership was based on use, not abstract lines in the ground and the absolute liberty to do whatever you want with a patch of ground. It was, you have a right to this land, frequently a more secure right than we do to ours today. You have a right to it because you have a duty to use it, to produce food, to produce the basic goods. And it's a whole different, it's still private ownership. And St. Thomas argues for it as such, but it's from a completely different worldview. And when I think of today, we have all of these ecological, disasters that are a result of extractive industries, blowing up mountains and mining them, and just stripping the plains of all their fertility by monocrops and toxicity and all these horrible things. And there's these various plans to restore them, through regenerative agriculture and all these things. But really, you just need families anchored on a place, cultivating it through succession, through several generations. And I think that is the best ecological strategy for renewing the land, because really the land is an instrument. Farming is an instrument. It's not an end in itself. And it is there to serve the people, to serve the family, to sustain the family, to produce the elemental bodily goods that sustain life. And so that was really a lot of our impetus to move out here, is to get that space. And oddly, with our 10 acres, we have 10 here, and it's beautiful. We've got fencing, cross fencing, standpipes, water in all the paddocks. It's pretty sweet. 10 acres is, honestly, it's a lot. And I surprise myself by saying that I don't need 10. As I'm looking at the next place for us to land, I would be happy with 5. I think that would be beautiful. We could produce unequivocally, we could produce far more dairy, bacon, wheat, and vegetables than we could possibly consume, even for a family of our size in this region, on 5 usable acres. So, assuming, half of it is not a draw or a cliff, but flat and semi-cleared soil, we can definitely
So
use it. And so what has kind of happened since we've been here is Farmstead Meatsmith, we have had our best year. It's kind of crazy. And I think it
yes,
was
it was.
2023. We were able
Yeah.
to yeah, we were able to sell out 12 classes. So basically a class a month. It was pretty, which was great. And then since then, it's kind of been a steady decline. And for reasons that are explicable. I've needed to uh, take up the task which I am not skilled at, which is broadening the funnel and just reaching more people with our classes. But I really think that at the root of it, there was a problem deeper than that that was sort of stunting Farmstead Meatsmith. And that was that every dollar that Farmstead Meatsmith makes goes straight to the family bills. Very little of it. I mean, as far as like strict investment back into Farmstead Meatsmith, none of it. All the revenue was just to maintain Meatsmith, maintain a good membership, and keep things running smoothly, and but not to grow it, not to expand it. And that was really just because the other unexpected thing, which it's so expected, but you don't know till you know sometimes, of a family of our size and its continued growth is that life gets more expensive. Our costs went up extravagantly, especially as we really wanted, and you'll feel this as a parent, you'll just desire to give your children the best education possible. And even if you're homeschooling, that means you're going to be looking online, at the very least, buying lots of books. If not, finding really cool classical online programs for them. And those are not cheap. They are very costly. And so, and then other opportunities, like part of education of your children is they need to know how to move. They need to exercise. They need to work out. And so getting especially if you have sons, oh my goodness, you're going to look at them one day and think, if this person doesn't run until they collapse on a semi-weekly basis, they're going to lose their minds. Like they have energy and you're feeding them well because you're growing so much food that they are stupendously healthy and energetic. And they got to get out there. They got to get out there and use that. Um, and so that was unexpected to me because I'm not a sports guy by nature. I am kind of lazy by nature, I guess. But my sons, it just became so apparent to me. So I did not expect that they needed, like, yes, they need hockey, they need cross country, they need something. Because yes, we can muck out the barn, but that's the other funny thing. Agricultural work on the scale of just what supports a family, it's not that much work. It's definitely more than just driving to the grocery store and getting stuff. But if you can do domestic scale agriculture, the actual days of like hard sweat and labor are very few. It's very manageable. It's so manageable that I'm looking at my sons going, we live on a farm, but you're not working hard enough at all. You need way more than annually sowing and annually reaping the wheat. Even occasionally weeding the garden, feeding the pigs every day is not an arduous thing. Milking a cow, once a day, like, that's not even that bad. That's just that just takes more patience than, the sweat of your brow, so to speak. And so it was not enough. My boys need more. They need, especially the boys and the girls too. So all of that to say, our costs continue to increase, but Meatsmith revenue started to decrease, which in the past is totally normal for Farmstead Meatsmith. Not a problem. That's just what small businesses do, up and down. And by God's providential care, never too far down for too long, we bounce back up and we can cover our costs and everything until really the last 2 years. And we have found that it's to maintain and fulfill the duties we have to educating our children, and to maintain an ordered family life. We need to reduce our costs, and so the plan is to get rid of one of the most onerous and burdensome costs, and that is the mortgage. And so our goal is to sell this place, as much as we love it and as grateful as I am for it, unequivocally grateful. It's been incredible. We're going to sell it, Lord willing, and pull enough equity to get the next place, which would be downsized a little bit, which is fine, so that we can eliminate that major cost of living, so we can have more bandwidth to do the things that we want to do, like, and indeed must do, educate our kids and get to mass. So our goal is to find a home, or maybe even build one that is much closer, that is still close to church, still has a little bit of land. Like I say, 5 acres is plenty. And I assume I'm going to have to probably build a shop from the ground up, which is fine because I've done it twice already. And we can do that again. A butcher shop is not a difficult thing to erect. But really, I think that will take care of sort of the elemental agricultural error, is that you get locked in this position where you want the land so badly, that you take out a mortgage to acquire it, but that means that you do not have the time to farm it because the bank does not accept apples and carrots and bacon. Unlike the Lord of the Demesne several hundred years ago, by the way, who would frequently, some would take, rent in monetary form, but a lot of it was produce too, depending on the era and the nation that you're in, or the fiefdom, I should say. And so that will be our goal. And oddly, I think this downsizing will actually free Meatsmith to actually grow itself, to invest back in itself, which I'm actually really excited for. We will be able to give Meatsmith a little bit of independence and take care of it the way that we need to, by expanding it, growing it, and increasing its productions. And I fully intend to augment the membership with our next homestead build. So if you want to see us build our homestead, which this will be the 3rd time. So we should be good at it by now. We know what we want. We know what is necessary to really sustain a family of our size, 12 of us. The Meatsmith membership is where I'm going to post all that stuff. And there is a really good chance that we will be buying land and building on it. And I think what we would end up doing is building a more temporary, affordable structure that can house us and Farmstead Meatsmith, and then build a very affordable but more permanent home using traditional building methods. Um, Permanent as in will last 1,000 years type of thing. And with more affordable, simpler material. Building a homestead that has a kitchen that is actually equipped to receive the abundance of the fields and turn it into delicious food, which is something
What
we have
are some
never
elements
actually
of
had. The butcher shop has always been kind of
yeah.
half kitchen, so that we can do that well. Because our kitchens are crippled, people. Let's be honest, they are terrible. But
What
that it
elements
doesn't need to be that way. And I've got
what
some really good
elements
ideas
of, you know,
about that.
the kitchen you had on Vashon or what you guys have going on that bottlenecks, it doesn't work? Because I know you've talked about it with the Dohertys too, as they're building their house to serve their farm. So, is there anything in particular that immediately comes to mind?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that useless surfaces is a big one. So we have overemphasized sterility to such an extent that we have put surfaces and even items in our kitchens, not because they serve any culinary end. They don't create any food. They're just sterilizable. And so we have a ton of them. And
Hmm.
countertops, oh my goodness, are these. And so you spend, and that's the crazy thing about it is they're not cheap, granite or marble countertops. They're just bulletproof. You can put your hot bread pan right on them, and they're sterilizable. But that's it. You can't cut on them. And so one of the characteristics will be wood countertops, wood cutting surfaces everywhere, untreated wood cutting surfaces that will
So,
never be defiled by
so it's a
bleach or
kitchen full
soap
of butcher
ever.
blocks.
We might,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to be like end grain, deep, 200 pound, really 18-inch thick butcher blocks, just a wood countertop and of glued pieces of oak or maple. That would all be great. Or cherry, any deciduous hardwood, and that will actually be cleaner than any other kind of surface because wood is porous and it has something like an immune system when it comes to bacteria. And if you doubt that, you can look up a study done by the unbelievably poetically appropriately named N.O. Axe. So the name is actually, it's like O period A-K-S. Oaks. And it's something like David Cliver, Cliver. It's ridiculous. The universe certainly rhymes a lot. And so these people did a study on comparing the effect of cultivating pathogens, nasty, like Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella, from raw meat of poultry and mammal kind on wood and plastic cutting boards. And I think I sent a link out in a
Yes.
newsletter
Yeah.
several months ago to that article, but it's great. Forever seals the deal. It's one of those beautiful cases where in the modern clinical lab catches up with, that thing we've always known, that has always been the tradition. So we've finally proved in theory what we know in practice for millennia, which is that wood is much cleaner than plastic.
Okay.
So that's a big one. We will have wood cutting surfaces everywhere, and you will have tall
Mm.
ceilings with hanging apparatus, ideally exposed timber frame beams, so that you can hang your prosciutto, your bacon, your pancetta, your guanciale from the ceiling over your counters, so over a wipeable surface, because they're going to drip fat. And the best place for that fat to drip is on your wood, untreated, unsealed cutting surface so that it can keep it oiled. And also not dripping on the floor where it will be a slipping hazard. So that's a big one. And then another big element to the kitchen will be the the banishment, the excommunication of
Mm.
kitchen cabinets. I can't do it anymore.
So
I hate
everything will be
cabinets.
open.
Number one, 18-month. It is cruel and unusual to expect your 18-month-old to not hang on all of your
Yeah.
cabinets. Come on, they will do it.
So you'll have open.
And oh, I'm losing you a little bit, Victoria. Yeah. So you can't really force them to not do. I mean, you can. You could try to teach them, but anyway, all it takes is once, and they've permanently weakened and or bent the hardware, and now you got to fix it. Also, cabinets again are this. They're part of our pathological phobia of dust, of things not being clean, right? And so we put them up in cabinets so they don't get dusty, but then they're completely shut off from your utility, from being able to use them. Uh, I don't even really want many drawers, maybe one for silverware just because that is actually a convenient place to keep them, but no cabinets. So all pots, all pans, all skillets, all cutting boards will be hanging from a pot rack or from the ceiling or from what the French used to call the caron de office. Office, right? It's not Italian, it's French. Office. I don't actually know how to pronounce it at all, but it means crown of office. And it is an iron circular hanging apparatus, pot rack basically, from which you would hang your skillets and your pans and everything. Because putting heavy cast iron, greasy, because they're always greasy, because you're not washing them with soap, because you shouldn't. The bottom's going to be sooty. Putting them in drawers or in, lazy Susans, isn't that what they call those things? The turntables? Behind closed doors, that is insane. That is ridiculous. They need to be ready to hand immediately, hanging. The other thing we tend to put in incredibly inconvenient places are utensils. So, your spatulas, your tongs, your wooden spoons, of which you need many, your serving spoons, your potato masher, those things. We put them in like buckets or holders of some kind that upon withdrawing one tool, you liberate about 15 others. It's ridiculous. Or opening a drawer and fishing them out through a drawer. I can't handle it anymore. No. What you do is you hang those from the bottom of your shelves. So instead of cabinets for your plates, you have beautiful, again, untreated, perhaps rough sawn lumber, nice, big, and dimensional on the walls. And that's where you put your plates, your cups, right? Your coffee maker. And if there's anything you don't want to put up there, any implement, tool, plate, pot, it's probably because it's ugly and you shouldn't have it anymore. If it's ugly, get it out of there. You should want to see it if it's worth having as a kitchen tool, because form is function and function is form. And I think you should settle for nothing less than sublime in your cooking equipment, your cooking tools and utensils. So you're going to want to see it on a shelf. It's pretty and it's ready to hand. And the shelf should only be one implement deep, right? So it should just be deep enough to host a stack of your dinner plates and your pot, right? You don't need it twice as deep, so you have to reach over to grab something that's behind, which means you need a lot of wall space and you need a lot of shelving. And then you can hang from hooks your utensils. beneath one of the shelves, or even from a series of hooks on a wall. That's where you hang your strainer spoon, your potato masher, your wooden spoon. It's all hanging on the wall. Not in a cluster like a grapevine with a bunch of other utensils crowded on one big hook. No, no, separated and individualized so you can grab it one at a time. And honestly, if you look at European kitchens, historically, like even, you know, who had this was even Julia Child. Look at some of her kitchens, and that's what they look like. It's quite pretty. Um, yeah. So even look at some of Julia Child's kitchens, or the European kitchenware, and that's how they do it. No cabinets, instead open shelves. And then essentially you need a massive range and hood with the combustion of fuel as your cooking source, not electric. Um, and you know, even the silly, what do they call it? The fancy one, the magnetic one. I don't even know what it's called, but it cramps my style and I don't like it. I need open flame,
Induction.
combusting fuel. Yeah, induction, that one.
Yeah.
Um, I know people like it. It's safe. It's very precise. But to me, what is precise is I can see the level of the flame and judge the rate of production of conduction. I don't know what the temperature is, and I don't care. But I can see the flame, and I can judge it that way. And then a big hood to evacuate that, because you are going to need to sear your home-reared pork chops or ribeye steaks with conviction and gusto. Really sear it, which means you're going to create plumes of burning fat smoke wafting aloft. And unless you want your ceiling coated in grease and compromising its structure, you're going to need a serious hood. And there's type 1 and type 2, and I forgot which one it is, but it's closer to the restaurant style hood. And so that's what we will, hopefully, Lord willing, that's what we want to create. And if we can get that kitchen right, then everything else pretty much flows from the kitchen, because we spend a lot of time in there. It is indubitably the hub of the production of the homestead and of sustaining our bodies. So that's our goal, and we'll keep you abreast of the proceedings and what we're able to do, and especially when we start creating things and maximizing our 5 acres or even less to sustain with the well-off frugality of peasants, our family of 12, and hopefully utilizing some traditional building methods. I have timber framers and masons in our parish, and they are generous with their time and abilities. So we'll see what we can accomplish. I think it will be great. I think it'll be a good thing, if at least to eliminate the mortgage, which is our goal. And so if you wanted to see that, check out, this is something that's going to be happening over this next year. We're probably going to list the house in a couple weeks. I have a few more things to clean and get it sparkly. And then I'm going to post, as much as I can capture as far as building the homestead, building a home, the kitchen, or inhabiting and adapting an existing one to what we need. All of that will be on the Meatsmith, in the Meatsmith membership. And you can check that out at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, where I have over 70 videos archiving these traditional processes, from the husbandry to the raising to the killing, the cutting, the cooking, the curing of all manner of livestock for the family table, for the domestic scale. And then we also will have our family pig class. I think there's only 1, maybe 2 spots left.
There's 2.
2. Okay.
2
It's April
spots.
16th, 17th,
Yeah.
and 18th, I believe. And these are our moving pigs. So it was actually really great when we moved from Washington to Oklahoma. which is a good league hence, far greater than what this upcoming move, hopefully. And I could just take down all of the prosciuttos, all the bacons, everything hanging in the kitchen, throw it in bus tubs, put it in the back of my slaughter truck with the rest of my butcher shop equipment, and then I drove that. I actually pushed it up with a tractor onto a semi truck lowboy trailer, and then shipped it all out here. And it took him several days to get here, obviously. And when he did, all we had to do was pull out the meat and hang it. It was fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So that's one thing that won't be disrupted in the move is our meat supply. And these pigs coming up for the family pig, it's a family pig 1 class. So we're going to do 2 beautiful Berkshires that I got locally here, and we're going to harvest them and cure them. And those will be our moving pigs. So come help us harvest these beautiful porkers. They're growing really fast, and they'll be beautiful. And then you'll be able to see too how they are raised in benevolent confinement, how you do not need a lot of space to raise pigs truly excellently well. You don't need vast tracts of land. You just need to treat them like pigs in accord with their nature, and they will positively thrive on a small space. So come to the Family Pig, April 16th and 17th. Check it out before the tickets do sell. And then we'll come back, and we'll give you another update in about a week as we continue to make this transition to a new homestead. Is there anything else I should talk about, Victoria?
Do you want to answer two questions that I have written down here? I wrote down that someone asked about, or we can leave them for next time too if you gotta get on.
Yeah,
the day.
let's do them. Let's save them for next time because we're coming back in a few days, so we'll do it then.
Okay.
I think it'll be great. That'll help us fill out the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, especially for those of you who are able to watch on the YouTube live stream. It was great to have you part of this. We will do this again, and that's always something that will be available to Meatsmith members to participate in the live broadcast of the podcast. And we relish your participation in that. It's great to have you.
You have a guest coming next week?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, I'm going to interview Jason Craig next week. He's got a new book that he's authored an essay in, and I think edited. That's got it looks really interesting. They're really exploring the Catholic agrarian landscape. And it's going to more or less detail a history of the Catholic land movement, but from several contributors, not just limited to the history of it, but also its current manifestation, which is pretty new, and what it's going to do going forward. So Jason will be here, and I'll interview him about that. I'm going to read his particular essay again because it was really good. He talks about community in that one, and it's very, very helpful context for all this, because that's another crazy thing that we're doing frequently when you're doing the large family domestic scale agriculture in the world, the modern world, where the pathology of convenience dominates everything. You need to have a community. And that is because of our separation from each other, literally just by distance. Even if we're close relative to other things, it's not as close as people used to be. And the greatest distance between us is going to be our independence from each other. And that is a double-edged sword. That's an interesting topic. So we'll talk about that with Jason next week. So join us for that on the Meatsmith Harvest podcast. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time.